Welcome to the Circle Sessions featuring the Circle of Experts. The Circle of Experts are Yasmin Robles from Robles Designs, Tonnisha English-Amamoo of TJE Communications, and Don the Idea Guy. I'm Brett Johnson from Circle 270 Media Podcast Consultants. Each week, one of the Circle of Experts joins me to talk about critical aspects of growing your podcast. We focus on marketing, social media monetization, and website design to help you implement all of these together. Well, this week, Tonnisha is here from the Circle of Experts. Tonnisha is on a mission to help small businesses level the playing field through digital marketing and digital marketing solutions. Tonnisha, thanks for joining me again today.
Yes, of course. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, beginning of the year, we're talking about goal setting. That kind of is the conversation you have in January. And I think we kind of talked about this before the episode as well, too, of looking at the SMART goal setting. And you could really start the clock anytime with this. But of course, January is a good time to be rethinking what you do. So you have some ideas on S.M.A.R.T goal setting for your podcast. and let's go over that. Let's start with what the SMART S.M.A.R.T means, and then let's break them down.
Yeah. Like you said, this is the time of year where everybody's working on resolutions and they have big goals for the year. But these SMART goals can be used really at any time of the year, anytime you're working on something new, or maybe you just need a reset. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Some people say the R can be relevant or realistic. So we can, jump into kind of like breaking those down. So number one, the S in the SMART stands for specific. So, I'm guilty of setting a goal and being a little generic. And I think we get generic because we get scared sometimes of like setting a goal and then having in the back of your mind, like, well, what if I don't reach that goal? So we can be generic. But I think it's important to be specific when you're setting a goal. So let's say your SMART goal for 2024 would be to post more content or gain more followers. That is a very specific goal, and you'll be able to kind of track how you are working towards that goal, if you are making strides to hit that or not. And then whether you are or not, it will actually be a great opportunity for you to look at how to work towards that goal.
Yeah, I would think the more vague it is, the harder it would be to do the other pieces of SMART.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which goes into measurable. So you want the goal to be something that you can actually, look at some numbers and see if you're hitting it. So if your goal is to post more content, you can look at some data from last year and say, okay, last year I posted once a week. So far, I'm posting 3 times a week. So you can see that you actually are making strides to hit that goal. Or maybe last year you did post 3 times a week and your goal was to post more, but now you're posting less. So now you can think about what is happening, why is that happening, and how can I, do better to reach that goal. So you can think about utilizing a content calendar, which you all know that I love. And that will help you not only make sure that you're posting more, but you can also keep track of analytics to see how that is working out for you. Same thing if your, specific goal for social media may be to gain more followers. You can create that content calendar and at the end of every month, see how many followers you have. And let's say once we're, 3-4 months into the year, are you growing? Are you posting more? If not, then now we can go back to the drawing board and try to figure out how to continue to work towards our goals.
Yeah, one thing came to mind when you're talking about that, that it seems as though if you have that measurable goal in mind, for your example, let's say last year you posted 1 time a week, and it's 3. Okay, very measurable. All of a sudden, subconsciously, you start to for me at least, you start to hear all this advice about that social media platform and how to do it better.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
almost that, and I heard this podcast the other day talking about how to work, quit dropping a bunch of links
Mhm.
in a LinkedIn um, a post,
Yeah.
because you're just dumping, and LinkedIn doesn't like that. So if your focus is on LinkedIn and increasing posts, well, why
Mhm.
would you just dump a bunch of stuff every week that you know is not making any sense for LinkedIn to even
Exactly.
be visible? So I think it's, again, it's that part of like, okay, you're in that mindset of doing this, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden this information that about the social media you're utilizing is kind of coming to you going, oh, I didn't
Mhm.
know that was a better way of doing this.
Yeah.
And it just kind of helps you go along. At least that's what hits me when I hear you say that. It's like, yeah, some of that stuff really comes to the forefront once you focus on what you're doing.
Yes, and I actually love that you mentioned LinkedIn because that's another way to get even more specific, is to say, I want to post more content on LinkedIn. And then you can, listen to other podcasts, read articles that are specifically talking about LinkedIn and how you can get better at LinkedIn. And maybe you spend, 1/4 of the year focused on every single platform and how to grow and get better. That's super specific. And, it gives you the opportunity to really dive deep into one thing and really, push towards reaching your goals. So I really love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah. It's at least you feel like you're moving forward and
Exactly.
doing the right thing
Mhm.
as part of this big goal that you have for the year. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It can be a lot, and
Mhm.
I know that social media in general can be a lot and, overwhelming if it's not something that, is your passion. Like, your passion is whatever it
Mhm.
is that you're doing, maybe not necessarily the social media aspect. So if you're able to break these goals down as small as possible, into the tiniest bites, it makes it more achievable, which is the A in the SMART goals.
Right.
And, I also like to use the word attainable interchangeably with achievable because, if your goal is to grow more followers and you have 1,000, you may not grow to 1 million followers in a year, if that is your goal. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but for the average person, it's probably not something that's achievable or attainable. So, really
Mhm.
thinking about as you're setting your goals to make them something that you can achieve. Now, you don't want to make them so small where it's like, I have 1,000 followers. I want to have 1,010 by the end of the year. You do want to challenge yourself, but you don't want to necessarily, think about or create goals for yourself that are seemingly just like so outrageous that it may not be able to not only attain, but sustain. So even thinking about, how often you want to post content. If you're only posting once a week and now you want to post every single day, that might not be sustainable for you to make that huge jump. So thinking about how to, if in the end your goal is to post 7 days a week, what can you do now to go there? Right now you're at once a week. So now our goal is 3 times a week. And then maybe in the second half of the year, our goal may be 5 times a week. And just, kind of slowly climb that ladder for yourself. You want to make sure that whatever the goal is, it's not going to be something that you hit one time and then it's like, okay, I did it, I'm moving on. You want it to be something that you can truly sustain throughout the time of you doing whatever it is that you're doing.
That's really insightful thinking about that. That, yeah, you can have a goal, but you don't know what it means. Okay, you'd
Right.
love to have 1 million followers, but what does 1 million followers mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a huge community that
Yeah.
wants to be fed all the
Right.
time, or they're going to drop off. There is a expectation level that you have built that if you're
Yeah.
doing, like you said, 7 times a week, you you have to continue it.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some end run on that to
Yeah.
figure out what you want to do with those million people that are
Mhm.
following. Okay, the engagement number, that's a different story.
Right.
There are lots of different levels of that, what a million followers mean. But
Right.
yeah, it's that. Okay, now you're a marathon runner. What's next?
Yeah.
Are you going to keep doing marathons, or what are you going to do? That's a
Mhm.
really good insight. It's great to say, hey, I've got 1 million followers. Okay, great. But
Right, right. Because,
yeah,
once you start, which, maybe the goal for some, maybe not for others, but if your end goal is 1 million followers, now we're talking about a whole different way that we're running business. So maybe it's not you managing social media now. Maybe it's a team that's doing that to make sure that your followers are being fed. Because when you have all those people, they're all wanting something. So there's like layers that will eventually go into that goal, but you got to start somewhere. And you want it to be at a pace that you're able to sustain. I mean, we've seen people go viral and then they really have nothing else to give after that. So then it kind of like dies out where it's like, okay, they had a moment, but they didn't have the right tools or team in place to really capitalize off of that moment. What's the saying, like slow and steady wins the race, right? So you want to make sure that you are able to really sustain and to attain and sustain whatever your goals are.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's that may be this A may be the most important part of smart. And it's funny
Yeah,
how it's smack dab in the middle of the word smart as well
I
too.
definitely think it's probably
Yeah.
the most important. Same thing with the R. Now, some people use the R for relevant, some use it for realistic, which is kind of along with that achievable, attainable, and
Mhm.
A. So when we say relevant, so, for me, being a small business owner, primarily working with other small business owners and nonprofits doing digital marketing, a business goal for me may be to build brand awareness to get more clients or more projects. A goal that may not be relevant to me, maybe I'm just thinking about like contracting because they're in my neighborhood, they're building houses. So,
Mhm.
would my goal to be like to learn how to like lay carpet? Maybe not. I mean, I don't know unless it's like a new business venture, but that's not something that's truly relevant to like what I'm doing right now. So when you're thinking about your goals, they should ultimately be aligned with whatever your overall business goals are. Um, and then, like I said, that R can be realistic. So, again, thinking about those million followers, is that realistic? Or is it realistic for you to say that you're going to go from not posting at all to posting twice a day, 7 days a week? Really thinking about, again, when we say smart goals, we're thinking working smart. We're making sure that the things that we want to achieve for our business, even if they are these huge goals, I'm not saying that they can't happen, but we have to be strategic about reaching them.
Yeah, makes sense. Well,
Mhm.
and that kind of leads to the T, timely, of that time
Timely.
frame of whatever it might be. And we
Mhm.
always think in year increments, and I don't know whether that may be healthy. We divide the year in months, weeks,
Yeah,
days. It could be a multi-year SMART goal too,
it
and
could be.
break it back down.
Yes, that is a great way to put it because I mean, you can have this smart goal, to maybe you do want to reach 1 million followers. That's not gonna. It might not happen in a year. It might if you get lucky, but maybe this is like a 5 year plan
Mhm.
to reach those 1 million followers. So maybe in year one you have a focus. Year two you have another focus, and really taking that plan, whatever your big idea is, and breaking it down so that it is specific, so that it's measurable, that it's achievable, it's realistic, and maybe you give yourself a time frame to even check in. So, let's say every quarter you hope to grow 250 followers per quarter. So, keeping track of that and really breaking that down. I mean, the timely part is another place where I think the specific and timely is where we can almost count ourselves out before we even get started.
Yeah.
When we're not specific enough, we don't really know what we're trying to achieve. And then when we don't give ourselves a timeline, we kind of just leave it open because, you may have that fear of putting a time frame on it, of
Mhm.
not achieving it. And honestly, I think that not achieving a goal is a great learning experience to figure out, what went wrong. Or maybe I need to give myself more time, or
Mhm.
maybe I gave myself too much time. So I procrastinated a lot and really didn't do the
Yeah.
things I was supposed to do. So really setting a time frame to achieve those goals. And like you said, it doesn't have to be year over year. It could
Mhm.
be every month. It could be every quarter. It could be, from January to June and then from July to December, really thinking about what makes sense for you and your business. Um, and, I know for me, depending on the time of the year is when I'm getting more people reaching out for proposals versus when it gets really quiet and everybody's either on summer vacation or they're enjoying the
Mhm.
holidays and there's really not much going on. So I kind of have those time frames to really work on my business and, working on some of the goals that I had set. So think about your industry, think about your business and what makes sense for you. But you don't have to work on a January to December. I mean, a lot of corporations are on a fiscal year where their
Right.
year, like from their 2023 doesn't end until June.
Mhm.
So, whatever makes sense for you and what works for your business is really important when it comes to setting these goals for yourself.
And even putting it into very specific to podcasting,
Mhm.
working with a lot of clients that they don't realize they can give themselves the grace of taking some time off.
Yeah.
So they look at it. So, let's divide your podcast content into seasons then.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there you have that time segment of a season, and one
Right.
builds on the other versus cranking out content all the time and you get burned out.
Mhm.
Well, let's take a break from that, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden now you can measure one season against another versus
Right.
month after month after month after content, and
Mhm.
you're starting to build this library of great content, but you
Mhm.
sometimes forget what you have. And
Right.
taking a little bit of a break and looking back
Mhm.
at season 1 or season 5 and how it all
Mhm.
plays, it gives you that break, and all of a sudden you get to start again with another SMART goal. Even
Right.
if your season is 1 month off, you just say,
Mhm.
"I'm gonna take 30 days off to redo and rejuice and look at season number 5."
Yeah.
Good. All of a sudden, you have those markers in time that may be a little bit easier to measure than month after month after month after month of analytics and downloads and, all this
Mhm.
engagement stuff that
Yeah.
may be a smarter way and more mentally healthy way to do it
Mhm.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and specifically with podcasts, I've talked about, how I enjoy, lots of true crime podcasts.
Mhm.
I listen to podcasts that are also like related to pop culture. And with the pop culture ones, because those are things that are happening right now, like those podcasters have unfortunately kind of set themselves up where they have to record every single week
Yeah.
because something that they want to talk about may not be relevant anymore versus like a true crime kind of podcast. They're telling stories of things that, it could be those infamous people that we already learned about, and maybe it's just new information, or they might be
Mhm.
telling a story where it's something that's already happened and now they're just telling the story. And I know for one of the podcasts, they have like a million listeners. And people, if they don't post an episode, people get mad.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
go on Twitter or X and they will tell them like, "Yo, where's the episode? Like, what's going on?" And, they've had to be open and honest about their mental health struggles just with the demand of not only working on the podcast, but other things that they have going on in their lives and, that demand for the content. and they've had to now kind of retrain their listeners to understand that, they're humans. They have, mental health struggles, they have family struggles, and sometimes you may not get an episode. So even me as a listener, I kind of got, retrained where it's like, I might get an episode this week, I might not. It might be on Wednesday like it usually is. It might be on Friday. It kind of just
Right.
is what it is.
Yeah.
So thinking about that too, when you have that high demand for your content, when you have 1 million listeners, are you going to be able to sustain that? And how will you be able to sustain that?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
that really plays a role into your goals as well. It could be the type of content that you have.
Mhm.
I feel like it may be almost better to have that evergreen content where it's like, of course, if there's something going on in the industry, like we've done before with
Yeah.
TikTok and Threads, where it's like, hey, we got to do this episode and get it out,
Mhm.
next day. But that's super rare. So,
Yeah.
being able to maybe set a goal for yourself if you know that, in the winter time, things may be a little slower for you, for your business. Maybe it's easier to get podcast guests when it's cold outside because
Mhm.
nobody wants to go outside and do anything. And
Mhm.
try to record as much content as you can so that you're not constantly on that schedule where it's like, oh my gosh, every single week I have to like make sure I
Mhm.
get to the studio and record. Like, can you set a schedule for yourself? Can you set a goal to say that in every podcast recording session, we're going to do 3 episodes or 4
Right.
episodes so that we can build out for an entire month and then use the rest of our time doing something else. So,
Yeah, exactly,
mhm,
exactly. And you know what we're painting the picture here
mhm.
is that sometimes you need outside help. You
Yeah,
just do
yeah.
because and if nothing else, another set of eyes, another set of ears,
Mhm.
another brain that's gone through these scenarios that you're just now entering. And
Right.
that kind of leads into, contacting any of the professionals here at the circle sessions, and
Yeah.
again, specifically you with the SMART goals of the social
Mhm,
media, whether it's specifically for a podcast or maybe a business that has a podcast or just
mhm,
business needs for social media. Let's
mhm.
get into contact information. So let's take
Yeah.
we've created an itch. They've got a
Mhm.
scratch,
Yeah.
and they want to talk to you more about these, some SMART goal ideas or how to implement 2 out of 3 don't understand, whatever the case might
Mhm.
be. How can they get a hold of you? Let's keep this conversation going with people listening.
Yes, yes, you can always get a hold of me through my website at tjecommunications.com. I'm also on social media as TJE I do offer free consultations. So if you want to talk more about SMART goals or maybe even just talking through some ideas of some goals that you have and trying to figure out how to break that down into the SMART model, I'm always down to talk to anybody. So don't
Right.
hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and you've got a newsletter going on too, don't you? You send some
Yes,
stuff
yes,
out?
I
Yeah,
do have a monthly
yeah.
newsletter. I did not send one at the top of the year. I'm recovering from the flu, like we were talking about, that's running rampant. So, yeah, and again, I set a goal for myself. I had all of my newsletters planned out from January to December, and January didn't happen.
Yeah,
So, things
yeah,
happen, and you
right.
gotta, figure out how to pivot. Um, when it comes to your goals. Like you may set these goals and something may happen and you have to pivot, and that's totally okay too.
Right.
I don't think anybody is like, desperately waiting for my newsletter, so I think it's fine.
Or once it's sent, they're gonna unsubscribe because, well, now you
Right,
send
like,
one, it's too
"Oh,
late. You're
you're
right,
too
exactly.
late," right? So yes, if you wanna talk through your goals or maybe even talk about I have a lot of failures that I've learned from too. So if you wanna talk through, how you, wanna work through some failures with your goals, I'm always open. I'm an open book, so.
Yeah, exactly,
Mhm.
yeah, and this year we're looking at, for Circle 270 Media, that any podcaster wants a podcast audit. let's
Yeah.
listen to what you're doing. It's part of the SMART goal thing. Is like, you have a podcast already. Let's take a listen to it and see what's not clicking.
Right.
Most podcasts have some really good things going on for themselves. It just comes down to
Mhm.
maybe tweaking this, tweaking that,
Mhm.
best practices. There is no wrong way or right way to do it. It just comes down to maybe doing it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And we provide that podcast audit. You can get a hold of us at mypodcastguy.com. And until next time, Tonnisha, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, of course. See you next time.